what do you guys? I mean, we all think that the numbers, the history, everything says Alabama, takes care of business, of course, with Mississippi State coming into town. But my goodness, can they get a what? Can they get a number one wide receiver really rolling? That's something that Alabama's not used to the last couple of years.
Yeah. I said this last week. I liked Alabama to win at Tennessee in a close game because I just said, when's the last time that Alabama just really underachieved? And that may not sound fair to Tennessee, but if Alabama loses a game to anybody anytime, it's kind of an underachievement for where that bar is. And they, after darn near losing to Texas A&M at home, they go and lose in Knoxville. So, I mean, we can see the issues as we see them. We can see where this Alabama team does not match up to some of the ones before. Does that mean this isn't a playoff caliber team? No, it doesn't. Our bar has just been set so ridiculously high that it's easy to see when things are not what they have been. So, anyway.
No, I agree. I don't know. Here's what we don't know about Alabama. In the past, there was when they faced teams who are the teams that make it to the college football playoff most of the time. They're teams that have elite defensive fronts that are going to shut down the run and make you one-dimensional. Well, Alabama was so good in the passing game in the past years that it didn't matter if you made them one-dimensional. They still had a Jameson Williams that could run right by you, or a John Mechie who could just carve you up, or Ruggs, whoever else over the years, Devonta Smith, wins a Heisman over there. So they could just throw one after another at you. And now they're dealing with people who, are very good college football players, highly ranked, but Blake, they appear to be mere mortals as to future Hall of Famers that are going over there. And I think it gives people, more confidence to be able to say, okay, we'll take our chances. We know Bryce Young's really good, but now we got to turn our attention to this Gibbs guy who can rattle one off at any time.
Yeah, it's unusual to think that Alabama players are human, but yes, it seems like there may be some actual humans on this team. No, I mean this. We talk about the history of this particular game, right? And I think we brought it up in the preview, looking at some of the numbers. Like, let's just call it what it is. I mean, Alabama has been pretty good against Mississippi State, to say the least, as of late. And if you look at some of the trends, I mean, Mississippi State has just not played well in Tuscaloosa. Period. Dating back, probably, I don't know, they're 1-6 against the spread in their last 7 games in Tuscaloosa.
The Sylvester Croom days.
I mean, I could probably go back and look even further to see that. I'm going to do that in a second, but that's the thing. And I think you can look at some of the things with Alabama coming off that loss. You can look at Mississippi State, their loss at Kentucky, but it just seems like it just sets up for one of those Nick Saban bounce back games. That's the other thing. I saw that stat floating around. I've got to find it. But what Alabama has done under Saban in games after losses, and I think it's a pretty ridiculous number from what I can remember off the top of my head.
I'm sure it's a 0 to the right of the dash. I mean,
well,
last time I just mean
I don't mean just the wins though. I mean how they win, like in terms of the
crush your soul.
Deficit of the scoring margin. Like it's pretty ridiculous from what I can remember. I'm going to find that too here in a second, but yeah, like that's what I think is something that you can look at. So
I think the term is a skull dragging. I mean, just absolute savagery on the behind those losses. My question for you guys is with Mississippi State, we saw that Tennessee was able to formation, Jalen Hyatt in ways where they could get him lined up on safeties and things like that. I'm not sure how to pronounce Griffin's first name. I think it's Letedrick. Do you think they're able to use some of those explosive receivers, whether it's Ra Thomas or whether it's Letedrick Griffin, some of those guys who have big, yards per catch, yards per reception totals already this year for Mississippi State to create some chunk plays against Alabama? It's a copycat league. I mean, Mike Leach is no dummy. You think he'll be able to scheme up some of that Alabama struggled with last week?
I
Go ahead,
mean,
Chris. I'm trying to find the game by game for the series here.
well, I mean, the way that Tennessee just threw at will against them last week, I know it's a different type of offense, but yeah, I mean, I don't know that Will Rogers is going to throw for 4 bills on them, but you're concerned if you're Alabama, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, my best bet of the week is taking the over 60.5 in this game. I'm taking the over 60.5 between the two teams.
Here's the thing that I think probably doesn't get looked at a lot, but you remember we talked about how much trouble Kentucky had in running the ball. I mean, Kentucky had not run the ball on anybody all year. And then Chris Rodriguez goes for just, a couple inches shy of 200 in that game. State is giving up 5.5 yards per carry if you take sacks out of it. What do you think Alabama is going to do over and over and over again in this one, knowing that?
Oh, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get his touches in this one. And, I do a little show with Tavares King and Sean Marino, and we were all singing the praises of Gibbs and saying he's kind of our pick to click this week because just like I said with Mike Leach, he's no dummy, and he can do some copycat stuff with what Heupel maybe was able to do to that Alabama secondary. Well, Saban and Bill O'Brien are no dummies either, and they're going to see, hey, Kentucky just eviscerated them running the football. I think that Alabama will try to do the same, especially if there's some uncertainty with Jermaine Burton out wide, and they don't know. They may get Tyler Harrell back, they may not. We'll see. So, especially if you got some inconsistency at wide receiver, give the ball to the best player, not named Bryce Young and Jahmyr Gibbs, and that's not a bad recipe.
All right, here you go. Alabama, Mississippi State have played 14 times since 2008. By the way, Nick Saban's first year was 2007, I believe. Is that right?
Sounds right.
Mississippi State won that game. Since then, 2008, they played 14 times. We know who's won the game every time, right? But Mississippi State has only scored more than 10 points twice in the last 14 meetings here between these two teams. So
it's been brutal when these teams
have played. It's not even point differential. Go back to last year, 40, 41, 31, 24, 7, 48, 25. So again, if you're just looking at the series history here, it's not been in Mississippi State's favor by any means. So I think that's why if you're looking at how this game could play out, here's a pretty big chunk of a sample size of kind of what we've seen in this series history. And again, teams are different every year, but it is pretty one-sided. So.